According to the recent Goldman Sachs report, India is predicted to be the second largest economy by 2075, with an estimated GDP of $52.5 trillion, surpassing the US economy, which will by then, in an estimate, will have a $51.5 trillion GDP, second to China's $57 trillion GDP by then. Currently, India is the fifth largest economy in the world with a $3.5 trillion economy. But India was not always in the race of global superpowers just a few decades ago. And to understand how India got to where it is now, it is important to understand the history of Indian economy ever since India got its independence in 1947. In 1947, India got its independence from the British Empire, and at that point of time, the then government believed that the best way to build a country, build a nation from scratch, was to adopt an approach which meant that the government controlled and intervened in the economy. In short, India opted for a socialist approach towards building its economy from 1950s till 1980s. Right from 1950s, government believed in the creation of state-owned enterprises. Throughout those 30 years from 1950s to 1980s, many of these state-owned enterprises suffered huge losses, but they were still being run, they were still being fueled due to political interests. In 1960, Indian GDP was $37 billion, and in 1980, that number grew from $37 billion to $180 billion, almost a 6x increase in the GDP in a span of 20 years. However, India was still largely isolated from the rest of the world in terms of trade up until the early 1990s, when in 1991, the then Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh introduced new economic policies which focused on liberalization, privatization, and globalization of the Indian economy, which meant that India would now be able to shake hands with the rest of the world, which meant that India would then allow private investors and enterprises to invest in the country, to build in the country, and also it enabled foreign direct investment into the country with a better approach than what was previously imposed. This also meant that India was now leaving behind the socialist economic approach to now adopting a kind of a capitalist approach in the form of a mixed economic structure. In 1991, Indian economy was valued at a GDP of $270 billion, and India went from a $270 billion economy to a $3.5 trillion economy in 2022. In a span of 30 years, the Indian economy has grown almost 13 times. When you talk about the per capita income, in 1991, the GDP per capita was $304, and today it stands at $2,389. That's an 8x increase in GDP per capita. Also, as per Morgan Stanley's recent report, 24% of Indian households currently they make between $10,000 to $35,000. Now, according to this report, this number will go up from 24% to 46%, which is almost a 2x increase in the number of people making between $10,000 to $35,000 a year. And this is the household income that I'm talking about. This is a 2031 estimate. Also, according to the same report, Indian economy will surpass the German and Japanese economies by 2027, becoming the third largest economy in the world. And also, the Indian stock market will become the third largest stock market by 2030 with a market cap of $10 trillion and with an average return of 11% per year. It is also worth noting that India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, wherein the economic growth in the last 10 years was averaged at 5.5%. Also, the report states that the Indian economy will more than double from $3.5 trillion, which it stands at today, to $7.5 trillion in 2031. Now, when you compare some of the largest economies in the world, the US economy grew at 2.1% in 2022, and the Chinese economy grew at 3% in the last year. Indian economy, on the other hand, grew at 7% just in the last year, which was double the GDP growth of the entire world. The global GDP was measured at 3.3% last year. And Indian economy, as I mentioned earlier, grew at 7%. That's more than double increase in just 1 year. Also, real GDP estimates state that Indian economy will grow by 6% in 2023 as compared to Chinese economy that will grow by 5.4% in the same year. So while the world has in a way struggled to grow in the last 1 year, India has grown at double the pace, and India still shows signs of potential for not only the people residing in the country, but for investors from abroad as well. Now, let us understand which sector does majority of the workforce work in. So, as per these statistics by Statista, agriculture still employs 43.96% of the total workforce, whereas services employ about 30% and industry employs about 23% of the total workforce. Now, just 10 years ago, agriculture employed about 49% of the total workforce. So, about 6% of the total population that was working in the agriculture sector has moved from agriculture to the other two sectors, namely industry and service. Let us also understand foreign direct investment and look at some figures regarding FDI in India. To understand FDI, it is important to understand what the definition of foreign direct investment is. Foreign direct investment, in simplest of terms, means that foreign entities, an individual, a group of individuals, a company or a country as a whole, they invest in a foreign economy, in a different economy or a different country where they see the potential of their investment turning out to be profitable for them. That is what foreign direct investment is. In the Indian context, foreign direct investment inflows mean that foreign individuals, companies, and even governments from around the world, they are putting their money, they're putting their capital into the Indian economy because they see a potential upside in the future that India holds for them. So, in the last 23 years, foreign direct investment inflows into the country have totaled to about $919 billion. India has received $919 billion in the last 23 years, out of which $595 billion just came since 2014, which is about 65% of the total FDI inflows that have come or received by India in the last 23 years. India witnessed the largest amount of FDI being flown into the country in the financial year 2021 and 2022 with an amount of $83 billion. Here is why FDI is important for both foreign investors and the domestic economy. So now let's understand why is FDI important for the foreign investors, for someone who's investing in the Indian economy, that is an outsider. Whenever someone invests their money, their capital into a different economy, they foresee a potential of making money. They see a potential of earning profits from their investment into that country. So foreign investment means that foreign investors altogether, they understand the potential that India holds, the opportunities that India is going to provide to its own people and the rest of the world to make money. So they are going to make a lot of money in India because of the sheer size of opportunities that are going to come in the following years. That is a huge plus for them. They are going to expand their businesses in India. They're going to expand their market size. They're going to capture a lot of customers and clients in the Indian economy. That is why it is beneficial for them. Now let us understand why is FDI important for a country. One of the main reasons as to why FDI is important is because it attracts foreign investment into the country, which means that FDI allows for other countries to see potential of growth in the Indian economy, which raises the status of a country. Not only that, it also means that as investment grows into the country, it will provide more and more employment opportunities for the domestic people that are residing, that are looking for work in the Indian economy. So more economic opportunities for the people that are living in that country. It also means that more and more output will be produced in the country. It also means that the infrastructural development of the country will grow. So when FDI flows in the country, it means that the infrastructure of that country grows. That country becomes economically progressive and prosperous, and more people get employment opportunities, which means that their living standards also increase. So this is why FDI is important. Now, the Make in India initiative by the Indian government is an example, is a huge proponent of foreign direct investment into the country. And with this, with the concept of FDI, it is also important to understand one more term, which is ease of doing business. Now, ease of doing business, this term simply means how friendly are the business rules and regulations in a domestic country for the foreign investors. And on that basis, all countries around the world, they're ranked. India ranked 63rd on the ease of doing business rankings in 2019. India made a huge jump from 142nd rank in 2014 to 63rd rank in 2019, which means that in those 5 years, the ease of doing business in India grew, or in other terms, India became a freer economy and attracted a lot more foreign direct investment into the country. Now, let us also understand some other important metrics that play a huge role in India becoming a major player in the next few decades. So India has overtaken China as the most populated country in the world with a population of 1.43 billion people, whereas China has a population of 1.425 billion people. Now, although the difference is not much, but it is also important to understand the median age of both of these countries. So the median age of India is 28.2 years. On the other hand, the median age of China is 39 years, which means that India has a lot more young people living and working. It is also important to note that 65% of the Indian population is 35 years or less. So India has one of the largest and youngest populations in the world, which is beneficial for the country because it means that there are more people who are able and willing to work. It also means that those people are more productive than people who are residing in any other country around the world. And CEOs and top level executives of some of the largest companies around the world are also Indians. Companies like Alphabet, Adobe, and Microsoft, their CEOs are Indians. So Indians are one of the most hardworking and one of the most talented people around the world. It is also interesting to note that Indians are also the highest paid ethnicity in the US, with a household income of about $120,000 a year, which is almost double the median income in the US. Now, when it comes to comparing the economies of India and China, China has an $18 trillion economy as of 2022, whereas India has a $3.5 trillion economy. So Chinese economy is almost 6 times as big as the Indian economy. However, it is also worth noting that China focuses more on quantity, whereas India focuses more on quality. Take a look at this particular statistic by the World Economic Forum. India, in all of these aspects, has focused on quality, whereas China has focused on quantity. It is also worth noting that China's trustworthiness has decreased in the last few years. This can be inferred from the fact that American companies are now looking to move away from China and towards India to basically set up their manufacturing units in the country. Apple being the most recent example of the same. Apple has opened its outlets, first ever outlets in India, in New Delhi and Mumbai just this year. And with the recent infiltrations of China into the US has become increasingly suspicious about China's motives and understands that India is an important ally in this matter because the US understands the geopolitics of India and China, and it is also aware of the fact that India is the only country that is not willing to back down against China. India is the only country in the world that has banned over 200 Chinese applications, including one of the biggest social media apps, TikTok. They were stating that India is not to be taken lightly by the likes of China and that India cannot be tossed around. China may be able to push around the US or any other country, but not India, because India does not step aside, India does not back down in front of the likes of China. No other country has taken that step, although US has time and again since 2020 tried to impose ban on TikTok, but they have not been able to do so. And although some states of the US have banned TikTok, but it has not been able to become a nationwide phenomenon. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been building relationships with world leaders, entrepreneurs, and business people from around the world. And many of the world leaders, business people, and entrepreneurs are impressed with the growth of India in the last decade. They're impressed with the future that India holds, and they are forming partnerships with India on a long-term basis. And although India is already the fifth largest economy in the world, in the coming years, India is going to climb up that ladder as we have discussed in this video, and it is going to be a major player in the world. India will have a major economic power in the years and decades to come. So, what are your thoughts? What do you think about the status of the Indian economy? What do you think about the alliances that are going to be formed in the next 5 years, 10 years, or maybe the next couple of decades? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video valuable, please share it with your friends and family. And also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much.